Hi everybody, this is Steve, D9 Games. I wanted to go over a general video of how to run your TTRPG, and I have 5 bullet points here to go over. And it's basically my best tips for a GM on how to run your game. So, number 1, know what's going on. Know what's going on in the world. Maybe have a map with some locations and some politics and what different factions are found in different areas. Know what races are involved. So in one of my other videos, you might have noticed I had like a map where I had north, south, east, west, what I had going on in the north, what I had going on in the south, etc. So it's really good to know kind of a general idea of what's happening in your world so that when your players head in that direction, you're ready to go. So you almost make like a tic-tac-toe grid where the middle square is home base or wherever your party members or characters or adventurers are at now. And then you randomly generate degrees of difficulty or levels of creature in the outlying 8 spaces. So remember, like a tic-tac-toe board, you've got 9 squares, the middle one is where they are, and then you might just randomly pick this as part of your prep for the adventure for the night so that you know what's happening in those different areas. So maybe if they go to the south, it's only a level 2. If they go to the north, it's a level 5. And if they head off to maybe the southeast, it's a level 3. So just different things, keep it random, because you don't want to steer this. You want the players to steer the adventure. It's kind of a GM player hybrid of how your campaign is developed, and this is more for campaigning. So again, know what's going on. Have a map, some locations. What I mean by politics is what's happening. Maybe the elves are fighting the Fomorian. So what's happening in the east? Well, that's where the Fomorian are mainly. Maybe the south is where the Celts are, and this is in terms of Twilight of Fae, of course. So maybe in the north, it's just no factions at all, but wild dragons, swamp, hags, and just different creatures in trouble. So number 1 is really know what's going on in general. That will help you if the players say, you know what? We've got rumors of something in the northwest, that there's a mountain and there's some activity up there, or our scouts have told us that the orcs are sneaking around out in that direction, so that you just have an idea of what's up there and you can help run your game. Factions. In our game, we use elves, Fomorian, Corrigan, and Celts, which are humans. So those are the main factions. If you kind of know where they're at as far as their main base, and maybe they move around to and fro, and then of course the can of worms would be all the creatures, the dragons, the worms, the orcs, the goblins, whatever. So that's number 1. And in our game, we push for custom design. So when you're prepping for this, you can just throw it down on a notepad. You're good to go. Number 2, be prepared. Have multiple options. Maybe have some little side adventures set up where you have a horde of goblins or some orcs or some elves or a dragon or just fey creatures or something random. But be prepared with maybe a little list, and we use D9s in our game, so maybe you have a list of 9 different things that are happening. So if your players head off into an unknown direction, you could roll it, whip it up, and run it. Have a third-party battle or situation going on. Maybe the Corrigan are having trouble with the undead, so they're battling and fighting it out. So if your players head in that direction, they stumble across something already happening to where it's not just A to B, where it's your players and your foes, or your characters and your foes, but it's a third party. So it's your characters stumbling across something that's already happening. Maybe the Fomorian are battling a giant worm, and your players stumble across. They could sit back and watch and maybe not be involved, or they can help the worm, or they can help the Fomorian, or whatever the case may be. But always keep in the back of your mind the power of a third party. Maybe they stumble into a war that's happening with 500 goblins attacking 500 Celts, and and they can say, well, this is nice, we're leaving, and they about face and head back, or they get involved. So that's where you give your players some agency and some heroism and ability to make their own mark on your world. Number 3, use some kind of timer. Use some kind of countdown. If things get a little slow at the table, you might roll the D9. I like to roll the D9 divided by 2, so I roll a 6, so that's 3 rounds. Some games you might use a D4. We don't typically use D4s in our game, but if you use a D4, that's a great one. I know Runehammer is awesome influence on a lot of the things that we do at D9 Games, and they're great. You got to check out his channel, Runehammer, Hank Infernale, awesome. But you roll your timer die, and you come up with, in this many rounds, something's going to happen. Now, you don't want it to be arbitrary. You want to have something going on. So if your players are heading off into the northeast where the swamp hag lives, chances are they go rolling through and there's nothing going on, but her minions might run back and let her know, hey, there's some fresh meat, some magical items wandering into our swamp. So you roll your timer die, you roll a 6, divide it by 2, 3 rounds. In 3 rounds, you're either going to have a scouting party of goblins come in, and you can allow your players to roll for some kind of a perception, or however you run it, where, oh, you notice somebody in the bushes watching you, and then they run back to give a report to their boss, and then all of a sudden you've got all hell breaks loose in the swamp, right? So timers are huge, and it keeps things moving at the table. Enough said. They're awesome. Number 4, consider a challenge. To challenge your classes. So you might have, in the Timbersprout 5, as you're looking into the waterway here on the right, you've got the Timbersprout 5 over here to the right in the waterway. I'm trying to set my camera up. Oh, there we go. So you have Edward in the front, he's their priest. You have Sam, the rogue, he's next up. And then you have Bastion, the guard, and Blake is the scout. And of course, Rupert is the bard / mage of the party. And so you want to think about that when you're prepping, so you can have something to challenge them. And maybe, every 3 sessions, you'll challenge a different character. So you want to challenge the priest by throwing in some undead, or you want to challenge the priest with some type of divine necessity, or maybe some heavy damage dealing foes that they need to heal, and just etc., etc. So consider it a challenge. Challenge your classes, challenge your party. We set this up with the Enlightened system with 7 different base classes. So of course here we have 5. The Timbersprout 5 has priest, rogue, scout, guard, and bard. So they're missing the mage, but Rupert actually doubles as a bard mage. So they're really only missing a fighter. So you really want to throw a fighter challenge at this party so they can say, damn, I wish we had a fighter, because this is just brutal with this horde maybe, and they're just not getting their share of the pain option. So, but mix it up. Number 5, treasure. Jim Murphy, huge inspiration at any of the way I think, but he's definitely been awesome with teaching us about magical items, loot, magical items, purpose. It doesn't always have to be gold or a magic item. It could be an ally that helps you in future encounters, or like Ezra's probably the best example of loot, where he's just an awesome wizard that's involved with the group now, that can help them in the off season, that can help them identify their magical weapons. So you gotta have some kind of loot or some exciting thing for the group to get when they've succeeded, other than just pop, or what we call pop is what some people call experience points. So that's really it. Those are the 5 points. A little review. Know what's going on in your world. Be prepared. Use a timer. Consider the challenge. And number 5, treasure. Gold, potions, information, allegiance, and clues toward future adventures. So I thought that'd be helpful on how to prep your game. Until next time, peace.